Hi, I'm Dr. Jim Hoven, your host of Ramos Law's Health Matters, and today we're going to talk about spinal surgery. Hopefully, if you've been scheduled for spinal surgery or someone you know has, you've already progressed through the path of other types of care. In other words, going from conservative care, whether it be massage and chiropractic, physical therapy, that kind of thing, even some medical care, and you've done maybe even acupuncture, or you've tried injections. So ideally, before surgery, unless there's a major trauma, you've undergone a process whereby those other things haven't worked for you. That's where we are if you're hearing that you're getting spinal surgery, and specifically what we're going to talk about today is a spinal fusion. So what is a spinal fusion? Just like it sounds, it's taking two bones of your spine or more, but typically two, and fusing them together. Now, how do they do that? The orthopedic surgeons will take a piece of bone from either your body or from a cadaver, and they'll take that bone and they'll put it in the space between the two vertebrae. They're going to put that in there either they could put it in a cage and put a bunch of pieces, small pieces of bone, or they could take one small piece or even one large piece of bone, could come from your hip, from a cadaver, from somewhere else in your body, and then they're going to make a new spacer for these two pieces of bone here called your vertebra, and they're going to put that in there, and what that does is that allows that bone to act as a medium so that you can get this bone and this bone to kind of grow vertebra or grow blood vessels into it and help it start coming together in a healing way. Now, that said, typically the reason that you're going to have to get a spinal fusion is from a few things. Number one, if there's instability. So if the spine is really unstable, what'll happen is they'll take this unit in this case, and they'll put some pins and rods in the back, and that's going to not allow this to move. So if this doesn't move, the assumption would be if the movement is causing pain, take away the movement, take away the pain. In some cases, it works amazing. But there are some cases where it doesn't work so good. That's why I'm such a big proponent of making sure that you've tried the gamut of other things before you go straight to surgery, especially spinal fusion. Now, another reason for fusion is if you had a fracture. If there was a fracture in one of the vertebrae, then you're going to want to make sure that you hold that stable, and a surgical procedure is a great way to do that. By fusing these together, there's obviously no way that that's going to move. So those are a couple of the more common reasons that you might get a spinal fusion. Again, knowing that you're going to have rods and pins in here, I want you to think about something. If our entire spine, like this one, is meant to move, and if we take two vertebrae and we pin them together so that they can't move, it's funny that what's going to happen is for the body to continue to get the same amount of motion as it did before, the vertebra above and or below are going to have to work harder. They're going to have to move more in order to accomplish the same overall amount of motion. The challenge with that comes is that if these guys aren't helping the process, it puts overwork on the vertebra above. And so oftentimes one of the complicating factors of having a spinal fusion is that you're going to have another one in the future between the upper vertebra that you just did and the one right above it. So now those two are going to have to be fused, or the lower vertebra and the one below it. So oftentimes, unfortunately, if you start the process of spinal fusion, there's at least one more in your future. Now with spinal fusion, you have to watch out with things like, do you have certain types of health conditions that would prevent spinal fusion from being the best way to go? How old are you? Do you have a lot of osteoporosis or thin bones? There's a lot of effects that could change the path of getting a spinal fusion done with success. So if spinal fusion has been recommended, don't feel shy about getting a second opinion on that. There are so many ways to treat back pain these days, one of which is spinal fusion, but there are other things that might be able to help as well. So again, just make sure that you're consulting with your doctors. Make sure that you're asking them the tough questions. What else can I do, if anything? What should I expect in my recovery? What can or can't I do following the procedure? These are all important questions if you're going to go through with a spinal fusion surgery. Now, I showed you on our example the spinal fusion of the lower back, but this can also happen in the neck. Now, when they're doing these procedures, they can go in from the front of the body, they can go in from the back of the body, or the side of the body. So this would be an important question for you to ask. Which version in the lower spine is the doctor going to do and why? There are certainly different ways that you can do this that have advantages depending on which side you go through. So ask great questions. Remember, the surgeons are there to take care of you, so ask those questions, make sure that you're satisfied before going through it. And if you're scheduled for spinal surgery, best of luck to you. If you have questions that I can answer, you can always reach out to me at jim@ramoslaw.com. Until then, remember, your health matters.